Well, firefighters are still working to control a fire at the Interstate Grain Port Terminal at the Port of Corpus Christi.
Yeah, fire officials say some highly flammable grain dust caught fire around 9:30 this morning in one of the smaller storage silos. Luckily, no one was hurt in today's fire, but as longtime residents know, the potential for tragedy is certainly there. It was nearly 38 years ago that a grain elevator explosion ultimately left 9 people dead and 25 others injured, some of them badly.
Our Taylor Alanis joins us from Upriver Road with the latest on this top story. Taylor.
Yeah, Joe McKenzie, as you can see, CCFD and Annabelle Fire Department is still out here nearly 9 hours later. Now, firefighters did evacuate the workers out here at the terminal for their safety. Again, no one was hurt, but fire officials say the flames are contained to a smaller silo that helps collect dust from the larger silos. Firefighters say they are not worried about it spreading to any of the other 89 silos or nearby houses, but the danger here isn't necessarily the grain, it's the dust.
Dust is very explosive. I think they say 500 pounds of dust is equivalent to 1 stick of dynamite. So that's why it's very important for us to keep the dust down and get water on it as soon as possible.
Yeah, so explosive that almost 38 years ago, as many of you can remember, there was a grain elevator explosion here. 9 people were killed and 25 injured. Again, luckily, no one was hurt here today, and there is no word on what started that fire yet. But firefighters are expected to be out here for some time. That being said, they encourage drivers to stay away from this area. As you can see, Upriver Road and Lantana intersection is closed off, so be mindful of that, and drivers just avoid this area for some time. Now live, Taylor Alanis, 3 News.
Okay, some good advice there. Thank you, Taylor.